Shabbat Shalom, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Torah in 10, your weekly dose of Torah and context in 10 minutes or less. I'm Hernan Cortez, or Rico Jr., and this week we'll be covering Parasha Tzav, Leviticus 6:1 to 8:36. Let's get started. Portion recap. Tzav is about setting a role into stone. And I say that because, the very end of this portion does just that. But leading up to it, we do see something unique. And that is chapter 6 and chapter 7 focus heavily on not only the offerings and what entails and the reason for bringing those offerings and how they're prepared, but also what is to be set aside for Aaron and his sons, what is to be set aside for them to survive, for them to live in a reciprocal process, which we see throughout the Torah, from Hashem to his chosen few within his chosen people. As we read through chapter 6, 7, and 8 within Tzav, we see a very clear picture of the priests being equipped and a raising of holiness. And it's interesting because within 6 specifically, we see, quote, "The priest is to put on his linen robe, and he shall put on undergarments next to his flesh, and he shall take up the ashes to which the fire reduces the burnt offering on the altar and place them beside the altar." And verse 11, "Then shall take off his garments and put on other garments." It doesn't specify what other garments because he is at this point lowering his level of holiness, his level of Kedusha, in order to carry the ashes outside the camp to a clean place. So within these 3 chapters discussing the offerings, how that it be brought, and what is to be set aside for Aaron and his sons, we also see small inklings of other fundamental concepts, such as the lowering and raising of Kedusha for the purposes of fulfilling holy sacraments. However, the focus of Tzav that I wish to take today is really primarily in chapter 8 itself, and that is the consecration of Aaron and his sons, because this consecration follows a similar pattern that we've seen previously within the Exodus experience, and that is we have Hashem commanding Moses to bring all the people to the gate of the tent of meetings, that all may see what's happening. Then Moses himself is performing the offerings. Moses himself is cleaning the animals, is processing the animals, is putting them on the altar. Moses himself is manipulating the blood, then the oil, and then finally it ends with the consecration of Aaron and his sons so that they may now take up that role. But the interesting thing is, why is it Moses himself doing all these things? It's something that I don't really hear people comment on very much. We understand the importance of these offerings. We understand the importance of consecration for Aaron and his sons with the oil and the blood, permanently connecting them to the altar itself in a perpetual covenant. But what is the reason that Moses has to do this himself? And why doesn't he never do it again? Well, again, this dates back to that initial encounter at the burning bush. I will make you like God to Pharaoh. And to be like God to Pharaoh is to be like God to everyone who worships Pharaoh. So then we have to ask ourselves, what was the role of Pharaoh? Yet again, we must find out where the children of Israel came from so they understand why the steps are being taken in the way that they are now, because they are being taken in the way they are now, so that the children of Israel will understand what's happening in front of them. So to have Moses being the type and shadow of the Messiah, the intercessor, the current mediator between the deity, between Hashem and the rest of the people, of the children of Israel, we see that he himself is performing these rites, showing that he is now passing the power and the sanctity and this level of holiness of Kedusha to Aaron and his sons. And then from that moment on, it is a perpetual statute. Just as there is always to be an offering on the altar and a fire on the altar, Aaron and his sons are always to be within the courts of the Mishkan, within the courts of the temple, performing these offerings for the people to be the mediators for Israel to God. And as someone who is a descendant of Aaron, this portion specifically gives me much comfort because the sons of Aaron and the Levites don't necessarily have an inheritance in the land. Not the same that many of the other tribes do, such as Judah or Zebulun or Benjamin, but our inheritance is God. Our inheritance is the God of creation. It is the honor of serving him in the most intimate, in the most close way that any other person could possibly achieve. And to know that from these offerings, knowing that God doesn't need this food, but this food is for you, It is a level of reciprocity which can only be described as divine. And it brings much comfort to people who are a descendant of Aaron because there is no temple. However, reading portions such as this, we understand that our inheritance is perpetual. We are bound to the God of Israel, the God of creation, in blood, oath, and soul forever. So I find Tzav to be a great message of comfort, a great message of hope, because just as Hashem created the heavens and the earth, and that he stated that the sun and the moon will never stop turning, I firmly believe that the temple will return soon, and that the use of the offerings, the use of the descendants of Aaron, and the use of the Levites will be perpetual and forever. And this even extends into his kingdom because, as we know, God never changes. Within the events of Tzav, Moses is commanded to ordain Aaron and his sons, after explaining several more of the offerings and what is to be set aside for Aaron and his sons. Through the offerings described and performed by Moses, Aaron and his sons are irrevocably tied to the will and worship of God. We attain a clear understanding of the time and process of consecrating the priests to fulfill their divinely mandated role. Did you know the priests of the ancient Near East were considered extremely important, not just to the pantheon of the gods, but also within the political functions of the state? Egyptian priests of this time would shave all their body hair and the hair on their heads before beginning the services in their temples. Ordination of priests can be seen even up to this day within the Catholic and Islamic systems. Question time. How many days does Aaron and his sons need to stay within the courts of the tabernacle in this portion? What was another reason that the camp of Israel needed to view the consecration of Aaron? What was one type of offering that was not referenced in this portion? Happy studying, and Shabbat Shalom.